Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Off the Fence, brought to you by BoyleSports, of course, and on all the At The Races digital platforms. This is your weekly go-to jumps review and look ahead show, and we'll be doing plenty of both in this episode because, of course, Christmas just around the corner. We have so much good racing to look forward to, but also some pretty smart performances to look back on as well. And I will be doing it in the company, as I do every single Monday night throughout the winter, with Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan. Let's just do a very quick hello, lads, because as I said, it's a busy show. But Tony, how are you? How are your Christmas preparations over there? You're in the festive spirit.
Yeah, just about now. Last minute announcement here that we'll be wearing Christmas jumpers. I'm such a Grinch, I don't even own a Christmas jumper, so I had to rob a hat off one of my kids. So yeah, that's about the limit of my probably expressions of festivity through clothing. But no, I'm looking forward to Christmas obviously at this stage, can't wait.
Well, anybody watching on YouTube right now will be laughing at the fact that I am as beige as could possibly be right now, quite literally, in my Christmas jumper effort. So sorry about that, everyone. I'm not actually really in the festive spirit quite yet, and my Christmas very much starts when I get on the flight to Leopardstown on the 27th. So that is kind of my Christmas day, Barry, but you'll be busy, I am sure, at home and at work. Young kids mean that you're going to be a busy father Christmas, aren't you?
Yeah, there's a good bit going on here as well for Christmas, so yeah, lots of excitement. I pulled out my Christmas jumper as well too, so it's got the Michael O'Leary colours on it and Sprinter Sacris colours down low, so yeah, no, I'm looking forward to Christmas, Don. It was good weekends racing and some nice novices during the week too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive straight into our what happened where category section, I should say. But we, in terms of performances to dissect, we will start with Cheltenham, and we will start with the big race on Saturday, which was, of course, the December Gold Cup. And it saw Fugitif win for that man Gavin Sheehan again. He's having a great time of it this winter, Gavin, in the saddle, giving these horses excellent rides for trainer Richard Hobson as well. Real feel-good factor around this horse finally getting his win at Cheltenham, but broke the hearts of Il Ridoto backers, Barry. And I'm going to start with you here because I know you were an Il Ridoto fan, and he did it so much right and then got pipped at the post, and your heart did have to go out to him and those that supported him.
Oh, definitely. It was a brilliant race and they went an end-to-end gallop. Il Ridoto and Ferrero Bamboo up front. But again, Gavin Sheehan, like he did in Newbury, it wasn't the plan, albeit it was more the plan in Newbury to take his time, but he, out the gate, he was on the back foot and he just sat where he travelled. And it's so important to let your horse travel in their comfort zone. You can't take them out of top, or put them in top gear too early around Cheltenham, or you will pay the price. So it was a brilliant, patient ride. He trusted himself, he trusted the horse, and he nursed him and nursed him and nursed him. He kept going. He outstayed Il Ridoto on the day. Il Ridoto was brilliant through the race with Briney, jumped electric. It was lightning quick. Ferrero Bamboo up front, they went a really good gallop. But for me, when they turned in and Il Ridoto started to pull away from Ferrero Bamboo, Briney pressed the button as soon as she crossed the roadway, heading to the second last. Now, when you go hard around Cheltenham, you can't afford to press the button too soon. He was a little untidy at the second last. He got a bit lonely then after the second last, should I say, and then rallied when Fugitif came to him, but just didn't have enough left in reserves to see it out. Having looked as if he was maybe going to hang on halfway up the run-in. So I think if Briney was to do it again and maybe just sat and waited a little bit longer after doing all the hard work to that point, I think if she just conserved a little bit, as they say, you should only try and win a race once. You don't have two goals. And for me, she pressed the button early and then had to go digging into reserves after the last one. There wasn't as much there. So it was a tough one for any of the Il Ridoto fans. He ran a brilliant race and loved it out in front. He's definitely a horse who's still on the up. But Fugitif, I think, benefited from a beautiful masterclass from Gavin Sheehan.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a real joy to watch in the saddle at the moment. Just one last line from you, Barry, on what you're saying there in regards to when Briney pressed the button. I find it personally very interesting, obviously never having ridden a racehorse. But when you're riding a horse that's giving you a feel like that and you're going so well and you're jumping so fast and so slick, surely the temptation, well, as we saw with Briney, is to think, go and win your race now. You must have made, is it a mistake? I was going to call it a mistake. I don't even know if it is a mistake, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, can you expand on that in terms of like how she was thinking in that moment?
it's very hard to get sucked into, or easy to get sucked into the occasion in Cheltenham, and you turn in, and there's an instant reaction when you turn in a race to go, press the button and go.
Yeah.
But when you're in Cheltenham, especially on the new course, it's very much, it's stamina laden. It's all about staying. So when you turn in, and if you press, like you might do in a Triumph hurdle, it's an awful long way home. So you need to sit. You know, you have to consider what you've done to that point. Have you gone hard? If you haven't gone hard and you've dictated the pace in the front, then you can afford to quicken early and get first run in the field. But if you've gone hard, you need to keep a balanced race. You need to hang on as long as you can, because when you've gone fast, your run isn't going to last as long. So the longer you can delay committing, the better. And wait for something to come for you and then quicken, because he did pick up when company came to him. And as I say, he got lonely between the last two. So I'd say if she just delayed it a little bit longer and went and faced the second last, and if you met the second last travelling easier in her hand, she's more likely to get a better jump, and then you could set sail from there potentially.
Tony, what did you make of the rides of not only Il Ridoto but of course Gavin Sheehan as well? Or was there anything else to pick up from further back in the places that caught your eye?
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear Barry on about a brainy Frost ride. I just wonder if the outcome had been a short head the other way, would we be saying she's an absolute genius? I thought her ride was absolutely brilliant. It was brilliant to watch. I think maybe the pacing of it from that second last wasn't totally efficient, but what she was doing kind of in the first 80-90% of the race, putting the rest of them under pressure in behind, brought through mistakes out of some of the others. I think there's a certain type of horse that just really seems to suit her well, these kind of bold jumping front runners, and she's very she's lethal from the front, I think, with these. And I wouldn't just be judging her too harshly on get there is a kind of small reverse that she did kind of suffer on that horse. It was certainly brilliant to watch. I just actually look at her stats kind of after the race just to see, she doesn't seem to have been having the profile of winners that she was in the past, but actually her stats this year in 2023 have been pretty good. I think she's up at kind of 41 winners, or kind of an 18% strike rate, which in her kind of good years 2020, 2021 would be kind of broadly where she's around, but she just hasn't really had a winner of a valuable race. I think the only race worth over 20 grand that she's won this year was Nappers Hill back at Sandown in April, and in those good years she would have been good for 4 or 5 of those kind of winners a year. No Frodon, and there are a few other ones that would have kind of played a part in that. But yeah, I thought her ride was really good, and I think if you can match her up with the right type of horse, she is highly dangerous from the front. I do appreciate that sometimes Irish jockeys, there's no greater sin than getting nutted on the line by one, and they'd nearly rather get beaten half a length coming from behind. I know that's a thing, but to me I thought it was a good ride.
Okay, well, on we go then, because there was other good performances, Barry, at Cheltenham. Let's rattle through a few of them. Broadway Boy is an interesting one, and he is the first of our price boosts with BoyleSports. Head over to the BoyleSports website to avail of the price boosts. There'll be 3 in this show, and Broadway Boy for the Cheltenham Festival, the National Hunt Chase, is the first of them. And Barry, I find this horse fascinating because he's so game in a finish, and he can jump, but then his jumping let him down despite the fact he won on Saturday.
Yeah, he made a couple of mistakes, but can jump well and does jump well on the main. Made some mistakes in his previous novice chase as well. He's only been beaten by Florian Porter to date over fences, and I'd say he has improved since then, but it's not a bad compliment to Florian Porter either. He's only 5-year-old, he's on the up. He was 146 going into this, so he's going to get 6 or 7 or 8 pound for this win. And just to draw a comparison, Stay Away Faye, who would be the top staying novice potentially in England, is rated 150. Now he's likely to maybe increase that mark as he performs through the season, but still you're at that level, and he's a 5-year-old. He's had 4 runs to date. You'd love to see him maybe just get a little break now and have 1 run before the festival, but he's definitely a horse, and with those mistakes there's still room for improvement in his performance and potentially improvement in him as an individual. So no, he's a horse who's on the up. Yeah,
absolutely. And another horse who's on the up, Barry, but maybe not impressing in the way. Well, I don't know, Shanag Bob, I think people were hoping for plenty from him. He got the job done at the weekend. He's now 14-1 for the Albert Bartlett with BoyleSports off the back of this performance at Cheltenham that we saw of him at the weekend. But he did it, he sort of toughs it out. What does he need to do better to start looking like more of an Albert Bartlett proper contender?
Well, he's 2 from 2 on the racecourse, so he doesn't need to do an awful lot better, and he just keep doing what he's doing. The Albert Bartlett is often a war, a proper test of stamina, and this will obviously stays really well. As I say, he's only his second run the racecourse, so he is entitled to improve. But the fact that Nicky has him in here over 3 miles would suggest maybe that he isn't the paciest horse in the world at home, and he needs this trip. So, the Albert Bartlett, as I said, can be won by a proper stayer. And this fella is that type. Whether he has the class to deal with something maybe a little bit fancier, I'm not so sure. But you can pretty much guarantee he's going to be there at the business end, whether he just has the class to win a race like that. But he's definitely a good stout stayer and a good way of going, but and open to improvement.
And what about Dysart Enos for the Fergal O'Brien yard? Paddy Brennan in the saddle. This mare continues her unbeaten run, and it feels like A, they think the world of her, but B, for Fergal, she's a really important horse for them to try and notch up a Cheltenham Festival win for the yard.
Oh, exactly, yeah. And she's 5 from 5, and she won the Mayor's Bumper and Entry last year, beating a tidy field. She won't say she was workmanlike, but she had to be ridden to win. But I'd say she only does as much as she has to do, and the better the race, the better she'll be. There's a lot to like about her, and there's no reason why she won't be competitive at that level. But interesting that Paddy mentioned they're going to do their best to, well, I won't say do their best, but they're going to avoid Grade 1 company in order to not pick up the £5 penalty for the festival. So she's going to have 11-2 in an ideal world for the Mayor's Hurdle at Cheltenham rather than 11-7.
Right, that's interesting, yeah. And she is currently 4-1 with BoyleSports for the Mares Novices Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. She's co-favourites at the moment with Brighter Days Ahead, and then Fun is in there at 10-1, who of course should have, could have, would have won the week just gone as well, but for her mistake at the last. And whilst we're talking about Irish performances, Tony, let's bring you back in, because of course a relatively quiet time of it in Ireland just before the sort of hectic nature of the Christmas racing period, but we did see some nice performances, and specifically in the novice hurdling division.
Yeah, speaking of novice hurdling mares, Only Be Night started off with an impressive win in Naas last Thursday. It's a little bit of a surprise to see her over hurdles, because Think Connections had said that she was going to stay in bumpers this season, but here she is. And she settled better, I think, than her 2 bumper wins, especially the first one, was with Gavin Cromwell at Limerick, and say maybe keeping her busy might be kind of the key to keeping the lid on her. But yeah, she did everything right, and she's back kind of to the exclusion of everything else in the race, and some okay mares in behind. On the same card, Kay de Bourbon won the same race as Impera Pass won last year, and again did it quite well. Nothing like as visually impressive as that horse, but a couple of things went wrong for me. He made a mistake 3 out. Lost his position a bit at that stage, but rallied well and was strong at the line, and beat I'd say a quite promising type in Fenway Park. He's one that might be suitable going back to handicaps. Sort of way he travels through his races seems to suit getting a bit of cover and maybe coming late off a decent pace. But the horse that really impressed me in the novice hurdles over the weekend was this Asian Master, trained by Willie Mullins, won at Torless on Sunday. Now the jockey, great story for the jockey, young Costello chap. He looks like he should be playing midfield for a hurling team or something. Jeez, he's a massive lad for a jockey now. I'd say he's doing very well to keep his weight in check. But geez, he was good on this horse. Now he was pretty positive. I think the one thing that really impressed me above all was his jumping. Some of the Mullins horses, when they're starting out in maiden hurdles, they can do a bit of work with their jumping. This lad now is coming from a point-to-point kind of background and that, and I'd run the Hunter Chase, but was his hurdling was very slick. But the one thing as well is that I just couldn't believe how well he coped with what's probably the sharpest test over 2 miles in the hurdle track in Ireland at Torless. Like, to do that was very impressive. And Mullins does have a habit of just giving the lay to trip preferences. Horses maybe with other yards, and they come back markedly and trip and cope with it fine. The horse that he beat was a stable mate. He didn't jump anything like as well, but seemed to be very well fancied. But I thought Asian Master was kind of well on top of the lane, and especially if he's going to go back up and trip, very, very promising run. And kind of has some nice form in point to points with Fact to Fail and this horse that was banned, the Fleming's Face horse, the horse with the positive test, and another decent horse, What's Up Darling, belonging to Gordon Elliott from Bumper. So yeah, I think that horse is well up to making his American graded races, I'd say, but possibly back up and trip rather than the 2 miles.
Yeah, interesting. Just sort of doesn't quite have that traditional background, but as with all things Mullins, it doesn't matter where they come from. He seems to be able to scout out this talent and then go on with it from whatever background. Barry, let's talk going back to novice chasers. Obviously, we've already discussed Broadway Boy over at Cheltenham, but in Ireland we saw both Embassy Gardens and Blood Destiny for the Willie Mullins Yard make good chasing starts to their season. Just interesting comparisons though, given their age. Obviously, Embassy Gardens is going to turn 8 in the new year, whereas Blood Destiny just out of his juvenile hurdling campaign and straight chasing and looks to have really taken to it. So very different profile of horses, but we'll start with Embassy Gardens in the beginner's chase at Punchestown. Where do you think he's going to rank? Obviously, his season sort of flattened out a bit last year, but where do you think he can go in the chasing department within the Mullins horses?
I think he's a horse who's up to a lot of progression. Obviously, as you say, he disappointed at the Cheltenham Punchestown Festival last season. Had some reasonable form prior to that. But this is a massive horse, and there's a reason why he's a 7-year-old going chasing. So his age profile held him back for because he was obviously so big and so backward. Where Blood Destiny, the opposite, was a juvenile. He's 4-year-old, more forward. But this one, he's a giant. Jumped brilliantly though in Punchestown, showed a lot of scope, put in a good performance. To beat Let's Go Champ, who was runner up, he was behind American Mike. So it'd be hard to draw a level of form as such, because he was Let's Go Champ was well beaten on both occasions. But you'd have to be impressed with the performance. And I'd say he's a horse who's capable to progress through the season. But he just adds another layer to what looks, to me, a really competitive novice chase division, especially in the staying novice chases. Like you have Classical Dream as well, you have Floor and Porter, you have lots of these horses, so there's a good bunch there. Blood Destiny, I was really impressed with him. Now he was getting an £8 4-year-old allowance, which come the festival he'll be on levels as a 5-year-old in the spring, so he's going to lose that concession. But you'd love how he jumped. He attacked his fences long and short. He was taking a length out of the field at most fences, just a real natural athletic type. But as a 4-year-old, he's probably much more advanced than Embassy Garden would have been as probably a 6-year-old. So he's just the right size, he's compact, he's got scope. Looked like he gave a blow going to the second last, got in tight there and a little bit untidy at the last as well. But I just loved how he took to his fences through the race. Interesting that he started over 2.5 as well. Maybe he's going to be kept to this trip. He obviously ran very keen in the Triumph last year and bottomed out, but he's a horse that I was very sweet on through the year, and I was really impressed with how he jumped.
Yeah, Blood Destiny's got a fair amount of comment on this show last season and now into this season as well. Just one last word on that, Barry, from you in terms of, obviously you've mentioned the weight advantage they have at the early part of the season, these 4-year-olds going chasing, and then obviously they don't have that in the spring. But even just taking that away, is it a route that is traditionally successful, going from juvenile hurdle campaign straight chasing up against these, I don't know, horses with sort of quite a different background to that Blood Destiny is going to have to meet come the new year and beyond?
Not so much in recent years.
Okay.
I know I won the RSA on Stardom Mahays on in 2006 or 7 or something like that. He was getting a £10 5-year-old allowance.
Wow.
So that allowance is gone. Yeah, and there was a good few trainers at the time were exploiting that. Hence the reason why that was binned. So they're in off levels. It'd take a very good 4-year-old or stroke 5-year-old to do it. This has potential, but it depends what opposition he comes up against, how strong that novice year is. But a 5-year-old is likely to improve a lot more as a 6-year-old, so he'd need to be very, very good. But he couldn't have made a better start than he did in Ace.
Okay, very positive. As Barry was last season, you can't. Nobody can say that Barry doesn't keep the faith with these horses. And Barry, last word to you on Apple Away, please, because of course she got off the market the second time of asking over fences. This time over at Leicester. She had that form behind Grey Dawning at Haydock, and I think for me one of the big improvements for her on her second start chasing was her jumping seems sort of faster and slicker and better anyway.
Yeah, well, Haydock was probably a good test for her having her first run, and it wouldn't be unusual for one of Lucinda Russells to improve a good bit for fitness for their first run. So she really improved there, jumped brilliantly in Leicester, and the further she went, the further she went away. She beat Make Your Mind Up 31 lengths, and Make Your Mind Up was a Grade 2 winner over hurdles. So it definitely wasn't a walk in the park, if you like, but she made it look like a walk in the park. And speaking of allowances, she has the mare's allowance, the 7 pound allowance, and for me the National Hunt Chase would be tailor made for her. This was 2 miles 6 on heavy ground around Leicester, so she's going to love the trip of 3 miles 6 around Cheltenham, and that 7 pound mare's allowance would count for even more over an extended trip like that. She looks like a proper stayer, so it'll be interesting to see where they go, but you'd be very happy with her.
Yeah, that's interesting, and she obviously has options with the Mare's Chase. She's also priced up for the Brown Advisory as well. She's in all of these markets, but as Barry's outlined, maybe the staying trip for her as a Grade 1 winner, getting a weight allowance, could be the angle in. Right, that we've done a quick rattle through this week of our What Happened Where section, because we must move on to the preview part of the show, a look ahead. This is our last show of 2024, so we are going to try and cover the Christmas racing, but obviously there's so much to cover and we don't have loads of time. So instead, the way we've tackled it is we're just going to focus in on the races that the boys wanted to talk about, that they have strong views on, so strong views may only apply, and then we'll give a quick mention to some of the novices towards the end of the show as well. So we will start in Ireland, I think we will start with the Savills Chase, and Tony, we better bring you back in here. Savills Chase at Leopardstown, of course, over the 3 miles on the 28th of December. We get to see Galopin Des Champs back in action. He is 7-4 with BoyleSports at the top of the market currently. Fast or Slow is in there at 5-2, and he is the next of our price boosts. Again, this is for a limited time only. Read the T's and C's, head over to the BoyleSports website, but Fast or Slow will be the price boost. He's currently in the market 5-2. Jerry Colom in there at 9-2. Gentleman's Game at 5-1. Envoy Allen at 7s. Obviously, we don't know the confirmed field at this point, Tony, but the focus will so much be on Galopin Des Champs. So, so many people disappointed after his seasonal debut, but you can only go back to what he did in the Gold Cup and sort of revive your hope that we're going to see better from him now. What can we expect at Leopardstown on the 28th from the Gold Cup winner?
Well, I'd say we can expect a very good race if a chunk of these turn up. Galopin Des Champs, I initially would have thought that he wouldn't have ran here, that Mullins would have stuck to the route he took last season going for the Irish Gold Cup at the Dublin Racing Festival. That's what he said after Punchestown. Now, he has been cut in price in the last few days, so maybe he is going for this, I'm not sure. Fast or Slow was impressive at Punchestown. One concern I would have with him is his tendency to jump right. In Cheltenham last year, he jumped right at most of his fences, and in the 2 mile race at the Dublin Racing Festival last year, there was also a little intent to jump right there as well. Now, he may well be able, that may be something he's able to straighten out, and he's a horse I really like, but it's just a little concern with him at the prices. Gentleman's Game to me would have to step up a little bit to be competitive here. Nothing to say that he won't do it. Jerry Colom now has kind of come into the mix here. Gordon Elliott making sounds that maybe he's not inclined to go to Kempton. Maybe he's thinking at Leopardstown. I don't know. He might miss Christmas altogether. I was just listening to Larkin Weir talking about the state of the ground there at Leopardstown this afternoon, and as per usual, it's slower on the hurdle track than on the chase track. I think yielding, maybe a bit of good yielding on the chase track, he mentioned. Now, he also gave out some stats about the amount of rainfall they've had this year, and I think maybe in the last couple of months, and it's vastly more than last year, but still that chase track is no faster than yielding, no slower than yielding, sorry. So kind of know that Gordon Elliott really doesn't want any better part of the Leopardstown chase track. Leopardstown isn't really a massive target meeting for him at Christmas. Yes, he'll have winners, but it's not maybe Navan or Fairy House or things like that. So I don't know what he's going to do with Jerry Colom. Is he going to maybe wait until Cheltenham at the end of January, something like that? Both the Cheveley Park horses. But the horse I've come down on, and I do like this horse for this race. He wouldn't have been a horse that would have had a great amount of time for over the years. But I think appreciate it's overpriced for this race at kind of 16-1. Willie Mullins, it wouldn't really be his race more so than the Irish Gold Cup. I think he's only won it kind of twice in the last 20 years or so, but he has gone mob-handed in the last few years, and a few kind of narrow defeats there. Plutard nutted 2 of his in 2020, and I'm hoping he's going to take a chance with Appreciate in this race. And he has the 2 mile entry on the 27th as well, but his last 4 runs have been over 2.5 mile plus, and I think he's well worth to go up the kind of 3 miles. Look, Mullins doesn't make too many mistakes. You can count them very, very quickly, the way he's placed horses over the last few years, but I think he made a mistake with Appreciated last year. I think he overdid him on kind of 2 levels. Punchestown John Dorkin meeting was put back a week last season. He finished up giving him a run in late December, then he went to Naas in early January, then he went to the DRF. Like I say, he was flat at the DRF. Now, came across a very good horse in El Fabiolo, and they certainly were going a mad pace, and then he went back and he ran him at 3 spring festivals. Now, I thought he looked gone at the end of that, temperament looked gone, but understandably he ran him because he was an older horse. He'd missed his season after his novice hurdle season. He was getting on, but regardless of all that, I think some of those runs have been held against him, when maybe the only run that matters is the run at Punchestown the last day. No, he was in the right place, but he looked vastly sweetened up to me. His jumping was excellent. He was again inclined to shift left. I think that's a reason why he can get the ground back with fast or slow, and it's only a small bit of ground anyway. Patrick Mullins reported afterwards that he was inclined to go left. His record at Leopardstown is excellent. He's a horse that tends to improve an awful lot for a run. We've seen that kind of in his bumpers and his novice hurdles, that he can take a jump from that kind of first to second start. Mullins was even saying in the run up to Punchestown it was going to be kind of a little bit of a rush to get him there. He might have to wait to Christmas, and I think there's upside with this horse going up to 3 miles. This race has been a race where younger horses tend to dominate. I think in the last maybe 15 years, the only horse older than 8 that has won it is Tidal Bay, and they do tend to be horses that have kind of had single figure chase runs before, and Appreciated is older, but he's still kind of only having, I think, his 8th chase start, hopefully on the 28th. So yeah, I think 16 to 1 is a big price about him. Left-handed to suit, gone up and tripped to suit, just looks a much sweeter model now than he did at the back end of last year. To me, the John Dorkin run was a career best, and yeah, I'm very happy with him now at the price he is.
Okay, big price swing then from Tony. Barry, over to you for the Savills. I mean, the rematch from the John Durkin, if it does happen, between Fast or Slow, obviously Appreciate It in second that day, and Galloping de Champs, like what Tony touched upon there about, it's very rare that Willie Mullins makes a mistake. It's also pretty rare that Willie's kind of outwardly very disappointed in the way in which I felt he was with Galloping de Champs, just not kind of sparking at all, it seemed. Are we concerned about him just as a whole at the moment, at this point in the season?
You could be, I suppose, but the fact that he's an intended runner here, and as Tony mentioned, he's been cut in price, which would suggest that someone believes he's going to run here. I'd say there's a good bit of faith kept in him. You know, he was a very good winner of the Gold Cup. He's been very good all the way through his chasing career in particular. He got beaten in Punchestown at the festival. He looked, slightly flat, if you like. He hadn't recovered from the Gold Cup, and to me, he didn't turn up for whatever reason in the John Durkin, but yet he was only beaten 1 3/4 lengths. So he did well to finish as close as he did, considering how he was through the race. And the confidence behind the market would suggest that someone believes he's in better shape. And for me, he'd be the one. He sets the standard. He is what he did in Cheltenham was so impressive. He, at his age, as a 7-year-old, has potential for improvement. So no, I'd be very much with him. Tony makes an interesting case for Appreciate It, and it will be interesting to see him going up and trip, how he fares out. You fast or slow there, has to be respected as well. Conflated is in there as well too. Stage Star has an entry, he could be interesting. So it looks a very hot race. Jerry Calam vibes will be more for this direction maybe than Kempton. So it does look a really competitive and hot race. But for me, the standout horse is Galloping de Champs.
Okay, Barry, I will stick with you then, because if we're talking about the staying chase category, then we might as well do the King George now. Obviously, flip back and over to Kempton on Boxing Day, the big race on Boxing Day, and at the moment, the current market is Allaho at 2 to 1, Brave Man's Game 5 to 2, Jerry Colom in there at 7 to 2, Shishkin at 7s, Royal Pagaille at 9s from the Betfair Chase, the Real Whacker at 9 to 1. Then it's bigger prices thereafter, Barry. Obviously a couple, well, I think, mainly that priced up field should and hopefully will run. So much interest then if we get to see Allaho at Kempton, and of course the Shishkin dynamic with the non-starting from last time. There's a lot of elements here coming into this King George.
Yeah, definitely there is, but the one for me is what can Paul Nicholls do for Brave Man's Game. To me, he ran a good race in Weatherby. Yeah. And he just blew up on that occasion. But then for me, then he rushed him back in Haydock, and he came back too soon after needing that run in Weatherby. So can he get him back to the level he was at last season? If he can, he's the one to beat. But to me, Allaho is the one who's going to give him most to do. He was off for nearly 2 years prior to winning in Clonmel last time. Very impressive through the race. Got a little bit tired, which he was entitled to do in his first run after that length of time on heavy ground. But he's a horse who loves racing. He's won right-handed, he's won left-handed, he has no issue. I'd imagine Kempton out the gate, rock and roll, uses jumping. He's a winner of the Punchestown Gold Cup. He has the standard, he has the form. But for me, he's coming in on a better prep than Brave Man's Game. So I would be with Allaho. I think he's the one to beat. As I said, I'm interested to see what Brave Man's Game turns up. Of the others, Jerry Calam, the vibe seems to be that Gordon's going looking the other direction. I think he'd be better off. I think Jerry Calam would be, for me, a little bit like Manilindo or Bobsworth lining up around Kempton. Just don't have the natural pace. Albeit he won a 2.5 mile grade one, the Scilly Isles, beating Balco Coastal in Sandown last season. That's not strong enough form over that trip for me. He won his novice around Aintree over 3 mile. It was a good performance, but Aintree is more of a staying track than Kempton. Kempton's a very sharp track, and a race like this with seasoned horses, you need a horse with 2.5 mile pace. For me, Allaho has that. Brave Man's Game has it. If Shishkin decides to go, he definitely has it too, and he would have a chance. So I'm not sure what way you'd want to play that, but I'd be happy to see Shishkin getting going before I'd make an investment there. Of the others, it's hard to say. Ryle Pagay, I can't see him figuring here. Alain Bress, I believe, has been ruled out of it. He's going to Lingfield. So I think the top two, Brave Man's Game, Allaho, and probably see what Shishkin can do in behind them.
God, it'll be absolutely fascinating. Like we say, all those different elements coming into play, and none of those horses tick every box coming in. So there'll be a lot of split opinions, but that's what we love, especially at this time of year. Tony, let's talk about the 2 mile chase division. Obviously, John Bond's dominated that and done his strutted his stuff over here in the UK so far this season. But over in Ireland, you have the Paddy's Rewards Club Chase is your sort of feature. Leopardstown 2 mile chase, 2 mile 1 furlong, and Captain Guinness is currently at the top of the betting, sort of this more exposed individual. He gets sort of branded as this proper grade 2 horse and not really grade 1 quality. El Fabiolo's in there, but presumably not going to run. Dino Blue in there as well. Gentleman de Me, he's been exceptional at times and then very disappointing at other times. Appreciate It is priced up. I mean, there's a whole load in here who aren't going to run, but did you have a strong fancy in this race, Tony?
It's not a strong fancy, but I'd say a reasonably strong opinion. I would be against Captain Guinness here. I'd say he's a favourite to oppose. The entries are so hard to know what's going to turn up at the minute, but he was very impressive in the 4-3, though the second Riviere de Tel seems to be better going right-handed, and Dysart Dynamo didn't really show up. It's interesting that Henry de Bromhead said earlier in the year that he thinks he doesn't really like Leopardstown. Well, I can make the point that I think the issue with him at Leopardstown is that the chase is there over the minimum trip or over 2 mile 1 furlong, and I just feel it stretches him. He moves well kind of there between the second last and last, and just doesn't quite get home. He's a very fast horse, and the shorter the better with him. So I just wonder, will he get found out? Like Dino Blue to me would be one who would be well suited, and even something like Sir Gerhard, like he has multiple entries. I've talked about coming back over hurdles, but I'd give him another chance over fences. Like his non-Punchestown form is really good. I thought he had every chance in that Dino Blue race in Naas before he fell, and Field Door can give that form a little bit of a lift behind El Fabiolo too. So yeah, I'll be hoping to take on Sir Gerhard, Captain Guinness if he does turn up here a short price, which just looks like he probably will.
Okay, sort of race to take him on then. And Barry, I know very hard given that we don't know what's going to line up, but were you kind of with Tony in terms of taking Captain Guinness on the basis that there's something with probably a bit more class in behind him in the betting?
Yeah, I think it's one to oppose. And I thought Dino Blue, she really stepped up last season. She was probably unlucky not to win the Grand Annual at Cheltenham, made a bad mistake in the second half. She went in and won a Furious, won a Punchestown. She started off this season with a win again, so she does look progressive. She would be the one from me. Gentleman to Me took about 3 runs, or he had 3 runs before he got going last season, so I think it'd be a bit brave to trust that he's going to win first time. So I think Dino Blue will be the one to oppose him with, and I would respect Captain Guinness. It's probably not a vintage renewal of the race, but she'd be the one I think to trouble the most.
No, I think that's fair to say. Tony, let's discuss the staying hurdling division, because of course we have the long walk hurdle coming up on Saturday at Ascot, which we will get to in due course. But over in Ireland at Christmas for the staying hurdling division, the big race is the Jack de Bromhead Christmas hurdle at Leopardstown, where currently with BoyleSports, Home by the Lee is your 9-4 co-favourite with Irish Point. Then Sir Gerhard in there, obviously, as you've already touched upon, multiple entries. Absolute Notion 7-1, Asterion Forlange at 10s, Monkfish, God, 10-1 as well, and Buddy One in there at 12s. But the focus very much on the top 2, Home by the Lee and Irish Point. And I think, this is a swing, but I'm pretty sure you're keen on the Joseph O'Brien runner, aren't you?
Yeah, I think the stable's been in probably the best form they've been in all year in the last while. Very good week at Fairy House with the National Hunt Runners and things like that. Ran a race full of promise in Navan 2 off a break against Zana here, who was race fit, and Bob Ollinger, who I'd say was hard trained for that to kind of get him back on track. Trip was probably a bit sharp, and he had a penalty. He's obviously well suited to be this race, having won it last year. Look, initially I was kind of disappointed looking at his price, but it's probably a shadow of the race that it was last year, allowing that Irish Point has plenty of potential and is kind of an interesting horse. But yeah, I think Home by the Lee is probably pretty solid there. And just one horse you mentioned there, Asterion Forlange.
Yeah.
I would kind of be expecting him to turn up in Tramore on New Year's Day, and I think that'll be a very suitable race for him, kind of right-handed, slow ground and the softest of fences. I thought he kind of got a quiet ride, getting back on track over fences in the John Dorkin, didn't run too bad. And Willie Mullins obviously would have an affinity with that New Year's Day race. I think I'm not sure. It's another Savills Chase actually, isn't it? So yeah, that might be a race for him.
Okay, good to know. One for just to keep in mind. And I mentioned Long Walk Hurdle, Barry. Obviously, we've got that to look forward to this weekend at Ascot. And West Balboa is your 3-1 favourite, taking on some real old favourites as well that are priced up. I hope they all show up. Champ at 100-30, Crambo in there, doesn't fall into that category at 7-2, but Paisley Park 5-1, Dashel Drasher 11-2. These are the prices with BoyleSports currently. So yeah, it's kind of one for the youngsters clashing with those old stayers, and we've been saying it time and time again, Barry, that these old lads, they've got to be sort of, they're not at their best, but of the young guns, who's good enough to take on an on-form Champ or an on-form, dare I say, Paisley Park?
Yeah, Paisley Park ran really well behind Dashel Drasher. Like, the two of them have to be considered, and Paisley Park loves it around Ascot. Champ won the race last season, first time, he's very good. So it's a competitive race. Maybe lacks the superstar. West Balboa, she's been progressive, but she needs to step up again. I think she's a mark about 142 or 143, which is a little bit off what should be needed to win a race like this. So she needs to put in a career best to win it. But for me, the one that's been forgotten and without favourite in Newbury was Marie's Rock. She was second to Sarah de Burley at Aintree. She was a winner of the Rail Keel on New Year's Day and beat Dashel Drasher 6 lengths, giving him a pound. So for me, she's the one. She sweated up and ran a bit keen at Newbury. You obviously have a little bit of forgiveness there, but she's only beaten 6 lengths. If she lines up here, you'd like to think that she would be in the form that Nicky'd like to have her in. And to me, she'd set the standard. As a Champ, Paisley Park, they've been new on the block. They're both 11-year-olds. It's hard to see they've improved. They're going to be there. They're going to be in the mix. But I think something like Marie's Rock would be the one. West Balboa, as I say, would have to bring a career best performance to win this, I think.
Yeah, I feel like people have really lost the faith very quickly with Maurice Rock as a staying hurdler, and we were all excited about her not that long ago in this category, and now she's sort of gone off everyone's radar a little bit. But Saturday we will see Long Walk Hurdle live on Sky Sports Racing. Everyone, tune in. Also live on Sky Sports Racing, Tony, is the Welsh National, which is on the 27th of December over at Chepstow. A very sort of, feature race for the Chepstow Carn falls between the good action at Leopardstown and Kempton and in and around all the good racing. But we shouldn't forget the Welsh National, because it, of course, it'll need a dour stayer if this weather continues. Did you have a selection for the Welsh National at this stage? Anything jump out the page at you?
I don't have a very strong opinion on this. I'd say the John Joe O'Neill horse at the top of the market would look solid, but I did have a few quid on a horse there called Autonomous Cloud. This is not my own selection, a judge's stuff here. I saw John O'Connell on about him there, and before it ran its first run of this year, and I thought he made a half decent case. He kind of, on exposed horse, has kind of improved as it's gone up in trip. Handley's testing ground well. Looks like he's probably going to improve again for going over kind of a marathon trip, and he's going to get in there with the lightweight. So I'd give Autonomous Cloud, to be fair, Brain a bit of a chance, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and as you say, the current favourite for the John Joe O'Neill yard is that Monbeg Genius. But it's a wide open contest, Barry. There's loads in there that sort of tick a few of the boxes. Obviously, we saw Nassalam winning the trial race. He's a 10-1 shot currently. He'll have a penalty to carry. Did you have a tip for the Welsh National?
Well, Monbeg Genius obviously has brilliant form. Go back to the Ultima with Corrick Rambler and Fast or Slow. Third in the Old Hennessy the last day on probably ground that was better than ideal for him. So I think he's going to enjoy the soft ground. So he's a worthy favourite. But the one that I found at a fancy price and I thought could really enjoy conditions was a winner of a listed mares chase in Market Raisin last time, was Gala de la Two. Very impressive win on heavy ground in Warwick last season. So she loved conditions. She really relished conditions that day in Warwick. So Chepstow was heavy at its last meeting. I'd imagine with the forecast we've had, it's going to be similar. So it's going to be a war. She has plenty of weight now, but she's a graded winner, as I say there. Beat Complete Unknown, 13 lengths I think it was in Warwick. But just she will love conditions, and she's coming here on the back of a win. So I think she could be a little bit ignored at her price.
Interesting. Okay, a bit of a sneaky one then in the Welsh National. Finally then, boys, obviously, as I said at the top of this sort of preview section, we can't go through every single race, but as we've spoken about plenty on this show so far this season, the Novice Chase division, specifically over in Ireland, has some really talented horses in there. A lot of them are set to run this this Christmas period, Barry. Can you just pinpoint a couple that you're specifically really looking forward to seeing?
Well, I suppose Fastal Vega being one. If he lines up in the 2 mile at Leopardstown on Stevens' day, he'll be interesting. He'll need as much rain as we get between now and then, because I can't imagine Willie will be taking a chance with him if it's going to dry out a bit. I would expect Gaelic Warrior to go to Limerick. He showed a tendency to jump to his right in Punchestown, which he did do over hurdles as well. So Limerick going right-handed, I think, will be important to him. 2.5 mile heavy ground, that'll be right up his street. And the 3 mile Novice Chase then in Leopardstown is, the entries there. You have the Classical Dream, Floor and Portrait. You have all of these proper 3 mile stairs. Corbett's Cross has entries in both races. Personally, I'd expect him more likely to turn up in the 2.5 mile than go on the 3 mile route at this stage after what happened maybe in the Albert Bartlett. So you've lots of really interesting and intriguing runners there with double entries and treble entries and whatnot. But I suppose as a spectator, I can't wait to see Fastal Vega again. But I think the Limerick race could be interesting.
Well, if Corbett's Cross meets Gaelic Warrior in that Faheen Novices Chase at Limerick over the 2.5 miles, I mean, we're fans of both, Barry. Who would you be with? I mean, the betting very much suggests Gaelic Warrior at the top of the market, but I know that you're a fan of Corbett's Cross.
Yeah, I do like him a lot. And maybe then the value could be in Corbett's Cross. But I think conditions will be ideal. I think the track would suit Gaelic Warrior and his running style. Going right-handed will be important to him too. So whether Gaelic Warrior would be beaten on this day, I'm not certain. But I think come March, going the opposite direction, it could be a different story.
Oh, God, yeah, really, I'm looking forward to following his progression, as we've already said on the show. Tony, over to you for the novice hurdling division. Again, sort of same comments, same rules apply, but horses specifically or whereabouts, certain targets, is there any that right now you're thinking they'll be the one for me in that race?
No, but I'd say that the race they call the Future Champion on December 27th, I'd say that could well be living up to its name. That looks a particularly hot race. There'll be a lot of kind of impressive maiden hurdle winners around 2 miles in the last while, and they're all entered here. And it is going to set up Elliott versus Mullins, and they nearly have no option but probably to run a couple of piece, because there's no other really suitable race for them. So at the moment, you'd have Down Memory Lane, Daddy Longlegs, Firefox, It's From Eel, Eat Atlantique, maybe even Brighter Days Ahead, something like that could pitch up. That's not even mentioned the Royal Bond winner, who Gordon Elliott kind of decided, or was saying after Ferry that he may not go to Leopardstown. I kind of did like Daddy Longlegs a lot in Torless. I think if you're into times, his form kind of got a kind of a oblique boost over the weekend. Like he did a much better time than Fun. Kind of at the weights and all, Fun would have won quite easily at Torless yesterday. So Daddy Longlegs, I think, form has got good substance to it. I do think maybe the ground will play a part there. I think he's probably one that likes a bit of nice ground, where something like Eel Atlantique, who was also very impressive in Gore and his form's really worked out, might be one for slower ground. So I think that's going to be a hell of a race in the 27, but I have an opinion at this stage when there are so many exciting ones entered. I'll just be waiting till I see declarations.
I'm very nervous because I booked my flights to Dublin on the 27th, and I didn't go for the 8 a.m. flight because I just thought, you get up so early, it's such a hassle. And so I went for the 11 o'clock flight, and now I've realised that I'll be cutting it fine to get to Leopardstown for that Future Champions novices hurdle over the 2 miles, which will be a disaster. That constitutes as a disaster in my world, boys. Finally, let's do tracker time, shall we? Because we are running well over timing-wise already. So tracker to round off the show, lads. Barry, I will start with you, please. Who's your tracker horse from the last 7 days?
The horse that caught my eye was In Excelsis Deo. I'm really impressed with his jumper in the early part of the race. He got in tight to the fourth last and came down his head at the back of it, and the same at the third last. He did manage to get competitive over the second last and then got run out of it in the death. But I would have felt if this can get his jumping together and hold it at the consistent level it was at early in the race, I think he's a horse who can progress and possibly has the option of stepping up and tripping time. So I think he might be worth keeping an eye on.
In Excelsis Deo for Barry then. And Tony, there was actually some confusion with your tracker horse, so can you confirm who's going in the tracker for you this week, Tony?
Yeah, probably because I mistyped when I sent it across. Mahler's Cove, trained by Jimmy Mangan. Handicap chase, low grade handicap chase over 2 miles at Naas last Thursday. But I thought the first two in it, Money Heist and Kate Hill, were probably 2 well handicapped horses. Both of them are really strong in the market. But Mahler's Cove is one of these. It's kind of got handicapped over hurdles, but is now running over fences. That's kind of a new rule in Ireland. And he kind of raced around the inside the whole way in the chase track at Naas and soft ground. It's usually not ideal. He looks fast, and he looks like kind of a pure 2 miler. So having run into those two and probably not raced in the ideal part of the track, I think he can definitely pick up a low grade handicap over the minimum trip when there's a bit of cut in the ground.
Okay, Mahler's Cove then for you. Thank you very much. Boys, wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, because this is it for 2023 for Off the Fence, but we will be back very early in 2024 recording what will probably be another bumper show, because we'll have so much to look back on. All the festive racing will be behind us and we'll be reviewing it all in the new year. But for now, do avail of those price boosts, but please read the T's and C's. It is for a limited time only with BoyleSports, and you must read the T's and C's, which is in the show's description on YouTube. So do that, please. Have a great festive period, listeners and viewers out there. A Merry Christmas to you guys. Thank you very much for your viewership over the last couple of years now. We much appreciate it, and we wish you a very Merry Christmas. Have a good one. That was Off the Fence.